Thank you for the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with you this morning. What I'm going to try to do is, in a sense, what you suggested, which is to juxtapose some of the conventional thinking, I'll call it broken thinking, with the MMT thinking. So I want to start with some of the things that we sort of think we know for sure. This project started with a small group of economists who were interested in and dedicated to explaining how a sovereign currency works. And so for us, from the very beginning, currency regimes matter, right? So I look at a spectrum like this, and MMT says, look, countries choose a monetary system. You can choose a fixed exchange rate system, you can dollarize, you can join the euro, you can peg your currency, you can have a managed float, you can have a floating exchange rate, right? You have this choice before you as a country. You set up a monetary system. And what we argued from the very beginning is that policy space is expanded for countries that are at that end of the monetary spectrum, that float their currencies, that don't pledge to convert their currency into something they could run out of, gold, another country's currency, that don't abandon a sovereign currency and start using a foreign currency like the euro, that you don't fix and pledge to convert your currency into dollars or something, right? That interest rates especially work different, but that the mechanics of government finance and the constraints are different when you're at that end of the spectrum as opposed to this end of the spectrum. So modern governments spend by instructing their banks, the central bank, which is the fiscal agent, to make payments on behalf of Treasury that have been authorized by Congress or by a parliament. That's how it works. Okay, so MMT is very different in this respect from the conventional view, because we are very careful to describe the mechanics of government finance as they actually work. And the mechanics as they actually work are that all government spending today is already, always, and only carried out via new money creation. There's no other way for it to work. So it isn't as if the government could pay the bills with tax revenue or with savings that they've borrowed or by printing money. There's only one way that this works. All government spending gives rise to newly created high-powered money, bank reserves, and then when the recipient's bank account is credited to a broader measure of the money supply, right? So the government can afford to pay any debt it has, as long as it's payable in its own unique unit of account, own currency, even the big ones. It can meet the interest obligation, it can pay Social Security and Medicare and all of that. The punishment, the relevant constraint is not bankruptcy. It's not that we're going to become Greece. There is a limit, right? But the limit is in the economy's supply capacity. It's real resource constraint. So the limit is inflation. In the world, I mean, this is integral to MMT, and it's why we don't recoil at the thought of fiscal deficits, right? They're just surpluses on the other side of the ledger. So you have to put this stuff in context. The goal should never be to put the budget in balance or in surplus or in deficit. That's not the goal. The goal is to achieve a healthy, balanced economy, right? High levels of employment, low levels of inflation. Can government spend too much? Can the deficit be too big? Yes, it can. MMT does not say deficits don't matter. MMT says deficits matter, but not the way we've been taught to believe, right? And I've just talked to you about that. So MMT is about replacing a fake, artificial, imaginary budget constraint with a real resource constraint, with an inflation constraint. And so we're centering inflation risk. It's at the core of the project, right? Supply constraints matter.